Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever considered that even really specific rules, maybe in ancient traditions, often have a surprisingly vivid story behind them?
Oh, absolutely.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into an ancient text. We're going to uncover the fascinating narrative behind, well, a very particular monastic regulation.
Yeah, and it's a story that tells us quite a bit about life, generosity, unexpected consequences.
And even golden garlands.
And the Golden Garland, yes. What's truly fascinating here is how, a single series of events involving a monk, a king, a little girl's wish could ripple through time
Right.
and end up establishing a fundamental principle for managing resources within a community. Our source for this is a section from the Nissaggiya 23. It's a foundational text, and it gives this really vivid glimpse into the practical side of early monastic life.
So our mission today is to journey through this intriguing narrative, pull out those key insights that show how practical problems, sometimes really messy ones actually, led to quite profound rules. We want to help you understand the why behind the what, in a totally unexpected way.
Let's do it.
Okay, so our story starts in two important ancient places. Savatthi, where the Buddha was residing, and Rajagaha. That's where we find a venerable monk named Pilindavaccha.
Right, Pilindavaccha. And he was working on something pretty hands-on at the time. He was clearing out a cave.
A cave to live in.
Trying to make it into a suitable dwelling, yeah. And this is where King Bimbisāra, the king of Magadha, first enters the picture.
Okay.
He visits Pilindavaccha, sees him working on this cave, and, being a thoughtful ruler, he asks if the monk could use some help. An ārāmika.
An ārāmika. That's like a lay attendant, right? Someone to help with the chores.
And exactly. Someone to assist with tasks like that. But Pilindavaccha's response is really interesting for understanding the early rules.
What did he say?
He explained that at that point, the Buddha hadn't actually authorized monks to have lay attendants.
Ah, okay. So it wasn't allowed yet.
Not yet. So the king, who seems genuinely eager to help, asks Pilindavaccha to check with the Buddha.
Makes sense.
So Pilindavaccha sends a messenger, and the Buddha, he considers the practical needs and gives his okay.
He just says yes.
The text quotes him, "Monks, I allow a lay attendant," which was a pretty big deal, formally allowing this new kind of support for the monks.
Okay, so the rule changes.
Yeah.
Now monks can have attendants, and the king had promised one.
Yes, but this is where it gets a bit human. The king was clearly keen to help. He made the promise.
Oh,
but
nice.
even kings can be, forgetful.
Oh no, he forgot to send the attendant. What happened to Pilindavaccha then? Did he just wait?
Well, the king comes back for a second visit, asks again, "Are attendants allowed now?" Pilindavaccha says yes, the Buddha allowed it.
And it came.
Promises an attendant again. But then for some reason, for a really long time, he just forgets. The attendant never shows up.
Wow. How long did he forget for?
It seems quite a while. The monk just carried on without that help. But then the king finally remembers. And it leads to this dramatic overcompensation. He asks his minister, "Hey, did we send that attendant to Pilindavaccha?"
And the minister says?
The minister informs him it's been 500 nights since the promise was made.
500? What does the king do?
His reaction is, grand. He orders 500 attendants to be given to Pilindavaccha.
500?
500. It was such a huge number, they actually established a new village just for them. It was called ārāmika, or sometimes Pilindavaccha, named after the monk.
That's quite a correction for forgetfulness.
Yeah.
I guess ancient kings didn't have calendar reminders.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
So now picture this. Pilindavaccha is staying near this new village full of his attendants.
Okay.
One day he's going for alms, as monks do, and there's a local festival happening.
Right.
And he sees this little girl, the daughter of one of his attendants, crying her eyes out.
Oh, why? What was wrong?
She wanted a golden garland and nice adornments, just like the other girls at the festival, but her family was poor. They couldn't afford anything like that.
Oh, that's sad. So what does Pilindavaccha do?
This is where his special abilities come in. He takes a simple piece of grass, a tīmaka, and tells the mother, "Put this on her head."
Just a piece of grass.
Just grass. But instantly, the moment she puts it on the girl's head, it transforms into this magnificent golden garland.
Wow. Really?
Yes, and the text makes a point of saying it was even more beautiful than any garland in King Bimbisāra's own palace.
Incredible, but I can see how this might cause problems.
Exactly. As you'd expect, news of this miracle spreads fast. People see this poor family suddenly with this amazing golden garland.
And they get suspicious.
They immediately suspect theft. They report it to the king saying, how could they possibly have this?
And the king, given his track record.
He acts swiftly, orders the arrest of the attendant's entire family.
Oh, dear. So the monk's act of kindness backfires badly.
It certainly seems that way initially, which does raise that question, doesn't it? How does this monk with such incredible power end up getting innocent people into trouble through his generosity?
So what happens next? Does Pilindavaccha intervene?
He does. When he hears they've been arrested, he goes straight to the king's palace.
Right into the lion's den, so to speak.
Pretty much. He asks the king, why did you arrest this family? The king explains his suspicion, the impossible golden garland, the family's poverty.
And Pilindavaccha's response
Is quite something. He doesn't argue. He just wills the king's entire palace to turn golden.
He what? The whole palace?
The entire building, just like that, turns to gold.
Okay, that would definitely make a point. I can only imagine the king's face. What did he do?
King Bimbisāra immediately gets it. He understands the source of the garland, recognizes Pilindavaccha's immense psychic power,
It releases the family.
Instantly, without delay. The aftermath was huge. People were deeply impressed by this public display of, well, superhuman power shown right there to the king and his court.
I bet. So after that display, Pilindavaccha must have become incredibly famous, right?
Absolutely. His popularity soared.
Mhm.
And because of this, people started showering him with gifts, with offerings.
What kind of things?
Specifically, the text mentions what are called the 5 medicines. These are ghee, fresh butter, oil, honey, and treacle.
Ah, valuable stuff, especially back then. Medicinal, nutritional.
Exactly. Very useful, very valuable. But here's where the next problem starts. It wasn't the generosity itself.
It was the quantity.
It was the accumulation. Pilindavaccha was already receiving lots of things, right?
Yeah.
So he distributes these medicines to his now very large community of followers. Remember those 500 attendants and others.
Okay, sharing the wealth. Sounds good.
Initially, maybe. But these followers started storing vast quantities of these medicines. We're talking pots, jars, trainers, bags, just hanging them up in windows, apparently.
Oh, I can see where this is going. That sounds messy.
Very messy. The stored medicines got sticky, dirty, and started attracting mice.
Mice infestations in the monastery.
Exactly. Not exactly the ideal environment. It became a real problem, not just practically, but also for their reputation.
People started complaining.
They did. Lay people visiting the monastery started criticizing the monks. They were saying things like, they're just like hoarders in a granary, like King Bimbisāra's storerooms.
Ouch. Comparing monks to the king's tax collectors or something? That's not a good look.
Not at all. And it wasn't just outsiders. Even some monks within the community, described as being a few wishes, started complaining internally about all this stuff piling up.
So it wasn't just about hygiene. It was about the principle. About monks looking greedy or attached to possessions.
Precisely. It highlighted this tension. Generosity is good, miraculous power is impressive, but without clear boundaries, it could actually undermine the core values of monastic life renunciation, non-attachment.
So with all this mess, the mice, the complaints from outside and inside,
Yeah.
how did the Buddha deal with this? What was the solution?
Well, naturally, word gets back to the Buddha. He confirms the situation, sees the excessive accumulation himself, and criticizes the monks involved.
What did he say?
He basically said that this kind of hoarding doesn't inspire faith in people. It doesn't look good, and it doesn't align with the path. This whole episode, starting from generosity and a miracle, really showed a practical problem needing a clear rule.
Which leads us right to the formal rule, the Sika. And you said earlier, this isn't just about tidiness, is it? What's the deeper meaning here?
You're right, it's much deeper than just keeping the place clean. The Buddha lays down this specific rule. Monks, for sick monks, certain medicines for consumption, such as ghee, fresh butter, oil, honey, and treacle, having received them, are to be consumed for a maximum of 7 days, stored, Seniya. Exceeding that, it is a Nissaggiya pācittiya.
Okay, break that down. 7 days maximum storage.
Maximum 7 days for these specific 5 medicines, yes. If you connect it to the bigger picture, like you said, it's fundamentally about the spirit of monastic life. Detachment from possessions, absolutely. Avoiding that appearance of worldliness, of hoarding, keeping the focus on the spiritual path, not on accumulating stuff. Even useful stuff like medicine, it sets a clear boundary.
That 7-day limit feels quite specific and strict. And just to be clear, what exactly are these 5 medicines again?
Good question. The texts define them pretty clearly. Ghee, usually from cows, goats, or buffaloes, animals whose meat was okay to eat. Fresh butter, from those same animals.
Yeah.
Oil, specifically sesame oil, mustard oil, matuka oil, castor oil, or even rendered animal fat, honey, just bee honey,
Yeah.
and treacle, which comes from sugarcane.
Got it. So 7 days for those 5. What happens right at the deadline if a monk still has some on day 8?
The rule kicks in at dawn on the 8th day. The medicine becomes Nissaggiya.
Which means?
It means it's subject to forfeiture. You have to give it up. And holding on to it or using it after that point incurs a pācittiya.
Which is like a minor offense, needs sorting out.
Exactly. A minor offense requiring expiation, a formal acknowledgement. The core idea is relinquishing ownership, showing you're not attached to it.
So how does a monk actually do that? Forfeit the medicine?
They have to declare it forfeited, usually to the Sangha, the whole community, or maybe to a group of monks, or even just one other monk.
Like making a statement?
Yes. The example given is something like Bhante, which means venerable sir.
Huh.
This medicine of mine is gone past 7 days. It's subject to forfeiture. I forfeit this to the Sangha.
Okay. And then what happens to the medicine? Can anyone use it?
Here's an interesting detail. Once it's formally forfeited and technically returned to the community's pool of resources, the monk who forfeited it cannot then consume it themselves.
Ah, reinforcing that letting go.
Exactly. But another monk can be given it and consume it. So it's not wasted, but the original holder detaches.
That makes sense. So the rule prevents hoarding. But surely there must be times when it's not a violation. Are there exceptions?
Oh, yes. The rules aim to be practical, not, impossible. So obviously, if you consume the medicine within the 7 days, you're fine.
Right.
Also, if it's formally dedicated, set aside for a specific use, perhaps, or if you simply give it away to someone else within the time frame, no offense.
What if it gets lost or spoiled?
Also, no offense, if it's lost, destroyed, burnt, even stolen, you haven't intentionally hoarded it past the limit, so you haven't broken the rule's spirit.
Okay.
Same if it gets eaten by an unordained person or even by animals. The point is, the monk's intentional storing and attachment beyond the limit. There's even a specific mention that if you give it away genuinely, not expecting it back, but then someone gives it back to you later, you can consume it then without issue.
It seems pretty well thought out, covering different scenarios.
It tries to be. It's focused on that core issue of accumulation by the monk themselves.
Wow. What an incredible journey this deep dive has been. Seriously, from a king just forgetting something to a monk performing this amazing miracle with grass and gold and ending up with this very specific rule about storing ghee and honey for no more than 7 days. It really makes you realize, doesn't it? Even rules that seem mundane can have such rich, unexpected histories.
Indeed they can. And this story, I think, really illustrates powerfully how those practical day-to-day realities, managing resources, dealing with public perception, even mice, directly shaped the ethical rules, the discipline of this ancient community.
It shows that tension, like you said, between what one person does and how it affects the whole group.
Exactly. That constant balancing act between individual actions, even well-intentioned ones, and the well-being or reputation of the collective. How small details can really matter for a whole way of life.
This story really makes you think, doesn't it? It's not just about understanding what the rule is, but why it even needed to exist. It came from such a human chain of events: forgetfulness, kindness, miracles, messiness. And maybe, it gives you, the listener, a new way to look at the rules in your own life or in your communities. What kind of unexpected stories might be behind them? What deeper reasons might they be there for?